Hello, I'm Chuck Wolf, Chief Executive for Charles J. Wolf Associates, LLC. As a motivational speaker and a leadership consultant and executive coach and trainer, I often work with very successful people and their companies. Since many can't afford a professional, I volunteer to host a radio talk show called The Emotion Roadmap, Take the Wheel and Control How You Feel, on a nonprofit community radio station in Bridgeport, Connecticut, WPKN. My reason for doing the show is to share with as many people as possible this wonderful process for helping people manage their own emotions and their relationships with others. My goal is for everyone listening to learn to use the Emotion Roadmap to make life better. As you listen to me, help others, I hope you are also learning. As a Simsbury resident, I'm delighted to be able to make the show available through Simsbury TV. To learn more, go to my website, www.emotionroadmap.com. Thank you for listening and watching. This is Chuck Wolf, and you're listening to the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. And I want to thank everybody who is a regular listener that's tuned in. It's always a pleasure to have you back. And for those of you that might be new to the show, I'll explain in a moment what the show is all about. And for those of you that have been waiting for me to come back, I just want to be able to tell you what the phone number is in case you've been waiting and you want to call right away with a question or some concern that you want to raise. And after I give you the phone number, I'll wait a few moments and then tell people what the show is all about in case they don't know and they're just tuning in. And then I'll tell you about a couple of topics I'd like to talk about today. So first, the phone number is 203-336-9756. And if you have a question or a concern or something that's challenging in your life and you'd like some help from me with the Emotion Roadmap, this idea that you can be smarter about how you handle situations by focusing on emotions, by how you are feeling and how you want to feel, and how anyone you're dealing with is feeling and how you want them to feel, that you can actually change those things. So if you know the show, you've been waiting to call in, I want to just say that I'm here for you, and I'm Chuck Wolf, and the phone number is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. And if you call in right away, then people will not have to have me explain what the show is all about because they'll see how it works. So if you've been waiting to call, again, the number is 203-336-9756. Okay, for those of you that are just tuning in for the first time, the show's about helping people deal with uncertainty, deal with conflict, to deal with decisions that need to be made that for some reason are going unmade. The idea behind my show is that lots of times in the many years I've been doing therapy, when I used to be a therapist, a family therapist, and for the last 30 years or so, an executive coach working with leaders trying to help people at every level in every kind of organization try to understand the human side of doing business, how to motivate people, how to work with people that are difficult, how to handle challenges, and so forth. What I've discovered is that when smart people are stuck, they're often stuck because something emotional is happening. Something emotional inside them, or something of some emotion that they're concerned about in another person that's key to what they're trying to get done. And what I discovered in the years that I work with the pioneers in emotional intelligence is that we have far more control over our emotions than anyone would have thought before. And so one of the things that I was doing in working with the pioneers was to helping the pioneers find a way to make it practical, the knowledge we were learning about emotional intelligence abilities, to find a way to teach other people how to use this knowledge in very constructive, practical ways in their own lives. And so in my work with organizations, I often help entire companies, sometimes divisions or small teams, to work through the idea that they can be smarter about how they work with their employees by being smarter about how people are feeling and how they're feeling themselves. See, our feelings are part of an evolutionary system that inform us and guide us and help us to survive. But sometimes our feelings are helpful in terms of alerting us to a situation, but once in a while they linger too long, or they really aren't as helpful as they might have been years ago when we were in a different stage of development. What I mean by that is we have a fear or flight syndrome that's related to stress that we in years ago, when we were first evolving, we knew that when some kind of animal was confronting us, we knew we either had to fight or run from it, and we could do that. But sometimes we find a similar set of feelings in organizational life, and we really can't fight or run from it and still continue to keep our job and our employment. And so we have to find different ways to deal with feelings. That's just one example. But one of the things I discovered was that sometimes the feelings that we have, while they are helpful in alerting us to a situation, they're not necessarily helpful going forward and moving ahead. And so what I found in working with these really smart psychologists who discovered this theory of emotional abilities is that we all have emotional abilities, and we have differences in those abilities, and those differences matter. Beyond that, though, we also, when we feel something, if we have a feeling that's not helpful for the task that's in front of us, because one of the really interesting discoveries for me is that certain feelings are better than other feelings for particular tasks. So if we're feeling a strong feeling, and it's a feeling that isn't helpful, and we know there's a feeling that would be much more helpful for what we're trying to get done, how do we change to that new feeling? And that's what the show's about, is helping people change how they're feeling. Now, one of the things that I'd like to do is I have people that actually watch this show on YouTube. This show is videotaped as I'm speaking now. It's being taped, and it will be presented on Simsbury Community Television. And in case you ever want to see the show on video, you can tune to Simsbury Community TV, the YouTube station, and you can type in Emotion Roadmap, and you can watch my previous shows because it's all on YouTube. Now, what happens is it's showed on the Simsbury Community Television Network in the town I live in, Simsbury, Connecticut. And I have people that see me and know me and are friends of mine, and they say that they wave to me and I never wave back. So I just want to, for all my friends out there in Simsbury that get to see me on television, I'm waving back at you today. So I want to say hi to Tom, to Sue, to Carl, and anybody else that may have been watching, Ann, all of those of you that might watch that are neighbors or friends. I just want you to know that I do think about you when I'm presenting the show. And for those of you who are listening, regular WPKN listeners, I also want you to know that I do think a lot about you too. And I want to thank everybody because the last drive we just had was terrific. So people are really appreciating our station, and we appreciate you, our listening audience, because this is a community radio station and you're part of our community. Well, in talking about the show today, I do want to talk about the idea that if you want to call in, again, the show's about helping you to change feelings. So what might prompt somebody to call in? And it's always better to call in earlier in the show because I'm only on for an hour. I'm on from 12 to 1 p.m. on the first and second Wednesdays of each month, 12 to 1 p.m. And again, the show's called The Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. I'd like to help you learn how to take the wheel and control your feelings, and to control and influence other people's feelings too. And you do that by listening to the show each week. I like doing this as a volunteer because it helps people. Sometimes I get phone calls from people I've helped from months ago, just saying how much they appreciated the conversation I had with them and how the plans that we helped to create together were working so successfully for them. And it's great to hear that feedback. But I also like helping new people too. If you've got a challenge, and sometimes the challenges are at work, something to do with being a leader, having some people in your workplace who are making you angry, frustrating you, I can help with that. I can help if you've got a colleague that is a peer of yours and someone that you have overlapping decision-making responsibilities with, you're struggling with because they see things quite differently. I can help you with that. I can help you with sibling problems. If you've got a brother or a sister who may not be doing their share, for instance, and helping with aging parents, or if you've got a family member that is just really having difficulties and you're trying to reach them. Anything that's going on for you where you feel stuck and you're uncertain about how to proceed. Again, what I found is when smart people are stuck, it's almost always because some emotion's in play somewhere. And if we can tease that out and understand it a bit, and I can help you, and everybody who's listening gets helped. So again, I'll give you the number to call, and then I'll tell you about the topics in case we don't have anybody, burning up the phone lines right away. But in case you do, I'd say don't wait. It's always better to call on the front end when I've got time to talk with you. Sometimes people wait to the very end of the show, and I just can't help because somebody else is following me. Today it's going to be Nick Jacobs. So the number to call is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. Okay, so let me give you a couple topics that I was interested in talking with you about today. First of all, I want to acknowledge 9/11. This is a time to remember the sadness and the grief that so many of us experienced personally because of people we knew, and just if you didn't know anybody, just how you felt when you saw, our happy, beautiful day that day. I remember it quite well, being shattered by planes crashing into buildings or crashing into the ground on that very, very horrific day. I think we've come a long way since then. I hope that we can remember the spirit that we all felt at the time that happened, about how it brought us together, because that's actually a good takeaway, if we can, to see if there are other ways to feel like we can bring ourselves together with people who we don't always agree with. In fact, maybe very rarely agree with, but still maybe like or love. And so I'm hoping that that feeling of unity is something that comes to mind when you think about this horrific day otherwise. A lot of people did some amazing things that day, especially our first responders, some of the people on the planes. I mean, a lot of very powerful things. I don't want to dwell on this, but I just want to recognize the powerful emotion that was created on that day. And so I just want to say my concerns, my prayers go out to all those who suffered any immediate loss that day, and to those of you who have survived and gone on with your lives and your families. We all think about you. And to all those firefighters, policemen, other first responders who did such great work on those days, again, a great big thank you. And we all really appreciate the heroism displayed on that day. Sometimes the worst events bring out the best in us. Well, the topic I want to talk about today, moving to a different topic, I'd like to address this idea of work. But a lot of times, because of the work that I do, I talk about leadership and what it's like to lead and what the best leaders do that make them the best leaders, that make them someone that people want to follow. But what I haven't really talked about much is, what can you do as a worker that people as leaders truly value? What do workers do that make them indispensable? Someone that everybody wants on their team. Someone that when you think about, gee, I got something important and I got to give it to somebody, who do I think about first? Who is that worker, and what is it that they do that makes people want to pick them? We're moving into a very different time now, it seems, where the economy is booming. And I just heard, I think there's something like 650,000 jobs going unfulfilled right now across the country. And an amazing number of small business, over 1,800 new businesses coming into being every day of the year now. Can you imagine 1,800 new small businesses every day right now? And a lot of them with minorities. I mean, it's a lot of good news in the workplace. But still, for the best jobs and the best pay, people want the best workers. And so if you have some thoughts about what you think makes someone one of the, if you will, best workers, give me a call. I'd like to just kind of talk about this. Sometimes we think we know what it takes to be a really good worker. But I'm hoping that there's some illumination here, because when you're a worker in a place that you'd like to stay, and you'd like the person you work for to think highly of you, for lots of reasons, what is it you need to do? And you might think you know, but my guess is there's some things you might learn. So I'm hoping people will call in and share what you think makes for a great worker, makes for the kind of worker everybody wants on their team. And hopefully, if more people can emulate or perform in a way that creates the image that they're one of the best workers in their workplace, then hopefully that generates a higher pay scale for you, better work environment, more flexibility, more favors when you need them, whatever it might be. So let me give you a minute to call if you can. And I'd really appreciate some of your thoughts on the conversation, because I know we got a lot of smart listeners out there in WPKN land. So if you could, give me a call. Again, the number is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. While I'm waiting for you to call about that, one other angle on this that you may want to talk a bit about is, how do you raise your children to have a really excellent work ethic? What can you do as parents in raising your kids so that they show up in their first jobs, in their first workplaces with really good attitudes? We know what the attitudes are that get you in trouble, right? When you're surly, when you don't like authority, when you don't necessarily show any initiative, when you just kind of hang out, you keep your head low and you do very little. We know a lot of the things that are counterproductive. But what are the things that are really productive? What are the things that cause people to really say, that's the kind of person I want on my team? Boy, I wish I had that person on my team. Or, let me tell you about the people on my team. I love having this person on my team. I love having Miriam on my team. I love having Muhammad on my team. I love having Leo on my team. What makes people say those words about somebody? How do you get that said about you or the people that you care about, or for your children? How does that happen? I'll give you a moment to call. 203-336-9756. Well, on this rainy day in Bridgeport, I would have thought a lot of people are home. So pick that phone up and let me know what you're thinking about what you think it takes to make a really good worker, or what you think it takes to raise kids who are going to walk into the workplace and be welcome. You know, we hear about millennials, we hear about this new I generation, the X generation. We've got all these generational concepts in our heads, but I'd like to move past stereotypes and just look at, what do we value in somebody when they're in the workplace with us? You know, you have somebody that you think about, that you work with, that has some characteristics that you think are pretty terrific, that make them a good partner, a good peer, a good teammate. Again, the number is 203-336-9756. Well, while I'm waiting, I'll just have to tell you about going to the Red Sox game last night. I'm not sure if you all want to hear this, but it's something that I want to talk about. So what's it take to be a really good team? Well, I can tell you that the people on the Red Sox right now, as a work group, have a great team esprit, a great team spirit, it seems like. And part of that is due to their manager. I think they had a lot of the same players a year ago, but a different manager. So with a different leader, sometimes it's easier to be a really good teammate. Well, we went to the ball game last night, my wife and I, and we got to go, and it turned out that in between all this rain, there was this beautiful night at Fenway Park. If you've never been, it's a wonderful place to go. And I also want to recommend, we stayed at the Hilton Boston Back Bay, and I'd just like to give a shout out to that hotel property too. We've stayed at different hotels in the city when we go to ball games, and sometimes a little bit out of the city. But anyway, that's a really neat hotel, and we really appreciate all the staff there and how hard they try to make your experience a really good one. But we went to see the Red Sox play, and for a long time during the beginning of the game, there were no runs scored by either team. And we were hoping that the Red Sox were going to win, because It meant if they won last night, they would qualify as the first team to make the playoffs. Not just a wild card spot, but the first team to actually make the playoffs. They're past the wild card as of last night because they are now 99 wins, which is pretty phenomenal at this point in the season. And one of the things that they did was one of the team members made a bad throw to the plate, and it bounced, and a runner was running from third to home, and the catcher couldn't catch the ball, and a run scored, and then another run scored. And so 2 runs came in when the inning really should have been over. And so the Red Sox were down 2-0. But they seem to have, again, just this feeling that they're never out of a game. They just continue to believe that they'll find some way to come back and win. And don't you want a team of people who feel like they've always got a chance to win whatever it is they're competing in? So we were watching them, and we were watching them for a while, and nothing was happening for them until finally something broke. They got a run. One of the players, actually a player that had been traded from Toronto, which was the team they were playing last night, hit a triple and knocked in a run for the Red Sox, and now it was 1-0. And then I think there was a couple of outs, and then there was one of the people got on base, and there was first and third, and then the person in charge is a fellow named Alex Cora, and he's new this year as their manager, and he makes a decision to put up a fellow who really hadn't been hitting all that well, but something felt right to him about it because he put Brock Holt in to pinch hit for another batter. Sometimes you do this because you have a left-handed batter and who's up, and you have a left-handed pitcher, and you want to put up a right-handed batter because the statistics say that's a better thing to do. But this was a left-handed batter being replaced by a left-handed batter. It was kind of strange because the other person was a pretty good hitter too. But he put up this fellow, and I guess he wants to showcase people and give people a chance to see who's going to perform for the playoffs. And he's willing to take some risks because the Red Sox have a pretty good lead right now because of the way he's managed really all year and the spirit that they have as a team. And the fellow who got up is a fellow named Brock Holt, who's considered a utility player for the Red Sox, somebody who can play a lot of different positions but doesn't have a particular position. Hits a 3-run home run, close to where we're sitting. So very exciting for us. And then the Red Sox went on to have another cut of great innings. So it was fun to see, but it's also fun to see the way that the manager gets everyone involved. A lot of times you have a team, and mostly it's the starters that play all the games. And you have bench players that very rarely get into the game, and therefore they want to feel connected, and some of them, because of their own innate motivation, are able to stay connected, while others have a hard time if they're not contributing, feeling connected. And so this manager has found a way to seemingly involve almost everybody in a way that everybody on this team is pulling for each other and really supports whatever this manager's decisions are, most of the time, I'd have to say. And so we got to see a great win last night. So that's my story about the Red Sox. But now I need to hear from you. I'm going to wait. I'd like to hear from you about what do you think about what does it take to be a great teammate? What does it take to be a great worker? What does it take to be someone who is valued by the leaders in a company, particularly the leader of your team? What is it that you think makes for a good worker? The number is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. Well, I don't know if we have people who are listening that don't have any ideas, or we don't have any listeners. We just have people that are reluctant to pick up the phone and call. I hope you do. It's always more fun. Here we go. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to?
Hey, this is Scott.
Scott, thanks for calling in. What you got?
Honesty.
Honesty.
I've been a team leader, and of course I've been part of a team. Honesty has got to be my number one value that I look for in a teammate.
Well, it sounds pretty simple, right, about being honest. Why do you think it's hard, though?
Fear. People are, afraid of what's going to happen. I used to, I led a team, I worked on airplanes, and I led a team, and whenever I got a new kid out of college, first thing we talk about is if you make a mistake, if you think you've made a mistake, if you're not sure of what you did, talk to me, because I'm not going to hold you responsible. You're in the learning process, but we got to get it fixed as soon as we can. It's important to get everything, it's just important to get stuff fixed as soon as you can. And, my last little part-time job I worked for, the manager I was working for was a vindictive guy who would, if you complained about it, he was going to get you sooner or later. There could be no honesty in that kind of situation. You just have to, you do your work, keep your head down, and avoid the guy. That's not a healthy work relationship.
Yeah, Scott, I absolutely agree with you. As I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about sometimes people are afraid to fail, and so they're not honest about where they are and what they're trying to get done for you, or they don't want to admit when they make a mistake, and yet everything gets compounded and worse when you're not telling the truth in those circumstances. But like you say,
and failure is part of the learning process.
It sure is.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that you said, though, it's really hard if you've got somebody who's really vindictive that comes down on you when you report a failure. So it's kind of, I remember one of the places I worked was an insurance company, and they used to have these variance meetings, they called them. And it would be anytime you were at variance with the goals that you set, people would have to talk about that. But because at one time, at least, they had a person in charge who was brutal and would attack you if you reported these things. So people ended up playing the blame game. It was like, even if they had to report some variance, it was always about somebody else's fault somehow. And it wasn't that they wanted to lie necessarily. They just felt like, this is painful, nobody's learning from this, and it's, and the only way to survive it was to try and make it out as if it wasn't something that you were responsible for.
Yeah, you're in a position where you have to kind of hope you can either outlast the person or find a new job sooner or later.
Right. So one of the things I'd say, because this show is about being emotionally intelligent, it's sometimes, while I think honesty is absolutely critical, it's also useful to think about when I do say something that's going to be upsetting the other people, how do I want them to feel, and what's the best way to say it? Not that you shouldn't say it, but what's the best way to say it? I think there's a point in there someplace, don't you think?
Yeah, and I think also, I think a leader has to really has to go out of their way to foster an atmosphere where honesty can come forth. And, in other words, the team leader really has to keep their head screwed on as far as emotions go, so that people don't, when people need to speak up, they're not afraid to.
Right. What did you do?
Go
ahead.
And a leader needs to be able to take criticism and, in a constructive method and really think about what's being said.
Right. So part of the ability to be a really good worker still comes down to who is it you're working for and how they are kind of leader that will allow you to be the kind of person that can speak up and say what really needs to be talked about and be honest about it in a way that people recognize that your honesty is putting something on the table that people aren't comfortable with but really do need to talk about.
That's right. Because, if someone is speaking their mind, they are taking a risk. Putting stuff out like that.
What was it you did on airlines?
Airplanes? Oh, I worked for Boeing, and I calculated structural loads on their engine structure.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so, it was important because we really didn't want those things to fall off.
That sounds great. Well, listen, yeah. Scott, thanks a lot for the phone call. I really appreciate you calling in.
You bet.
Take care.
Good show.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to?
Hello, my name is Stephen. I'm calling from Bridgeport.
Hi, Stephen. Could you speak up a little bit? You're kind of soft.
Most certainly can.
Oh, I can hear you now.
There we go. I just tuned in for the past few minutes and heard the gentleman talking about honesty in the workplace, and integrity seems to be few and far between nowadays.
Yeah, it's not always the...
And it makes it difficult as a consumer where to shop and where to get your services.
What we're talking about is what makes for a really good worker, and integrity is another piece of honesty, I think.
Well,
do you see it a little different?
Comes first,
Pardon me?
Integrity in any comes first. Honesty just it flows with it. I mean, honesty is just secondary to just doing a good job. I mean, you shouldn't have to try to be honest. That should just happen.
It should be, right.
You know what I'm saying?
I don't know if you caught it.
When Scott, the byproduct of integrity,
right.
And on the subject of finding good workers, I'm having a difficult time exactly with that because I need someone for just 20, 30 hours a week, and some of these there's no of the younger contingency who want to come out and put any time in. They don't want to mentor. It's unfortunate that the younger kids nowadays don't want to be more active in their pursuit of labor rather than just going to college.
What do you got? What are you offering?
Well, I'm just saying, for example, I'm looking for some electronic technicians, kids who are currently in school now for electronics, and the few that I get that come to help me still don't seem to have any real interest. It just seems to be a thing to do. Even when before I asked them, so why did you choose electronics? Most of them seem to say because that's kind of what they fell into for one reason or another, not because there was any passion or interest.
Okay.
It's just because my parents made me do something.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
You know what I'm saying? And it was
I do. Yeah.
A two-year tech school of some sort, whether it be automotive or electronics, is easier than college, and it keeps you at home, and it's just gets your parents off your back.
Well, that's interesting. So that's sort of like a negative view of what happens. Have you ever had somebody in there that was really great? And can you describe?
One out of 6.
Well, tell me about the one, because what I'm hoping with this.
He was.
Go ahead.
What was great is although he was still preoccupied with his cell phone, he still at least had a technically wound mind where he had an interest and knew and had a mechanical aptitude. That's probably the term I should use best. Whether we can apply that to an electrical or plumbing or whatever, but an aptitude.
Okay.
To want to just be able to think in a format of fixing or how things work. It seems so rare. Kids drive their cars today. They don't even know what's under the hood because they never had to. When we grew up, you had to take care of it.
It's true.
These kids don't have a need to know how things work. They just work.
Well, stay with me for a moment on you had a kid that you liked that had a mechanical aptitude.
Yeah, and he moved on to other things. He actually was really good and smart and got a good job elsewhere and just didn't have time for me anymore because I couldn't offer him enough hours. And I think that's wonderful. That's great. That's exactly what I want to see happen.
So let me see if I can tease out what the criteria is that makes somebody kind of special, at least in your mind. One is that they come in with an aptitude and an interest in what they're doing.
Those are the only 2 things I ask.
Okay, aptitude and interest are key.
And desire and just an interest to know how things work.
Yeah.
I mean, like when I was a kid, my parents had to lock up the toolbox because I took everything apart. Because then again, I hate to just keep blaming cell phones and stuff, but we didn't have those distractions.
Right.
In the 70s, in the 80s, we didn't. If you had lots of free time. There was no distraction with a phone to communicate with someone on the other side of the world. There was a guy outside with the hood up on his car. Let's go see what's going on.
Well, one of my son-in-laws has a real interest in fixing things. He's just really good at it.
That's rare, and you need to nurture that as much as you can. I'm serious.
Well, what I wanted to say was the cell phone is his toolkit in many cases because he does a lot with computers, and the cell phone has a lot of information that I can't tease out the same way he does. He just knows how to use it in a way that's like a tool.
So you know something? I personally don't own any smartphones or iPhones or pads or any of that stuff because I have so much respect for the technology that it's too much for me. I don't need that. I understand what all that does, and I don't need it. But a gentleman like him has a true respect for what that thing in his hand. Most people just get mad when the thing doesn't work, but they have no idea what that is trying to communicate with satellites of thousands of miles away. They
Right.
have no respect for their technology in their hand.
It is funny, sometimes I'll be driving and you know how you lose a phone call. Well, I don't know, you may not have a phone, but sometimes you're driving and I'm talking to somebody 3,000 miles away and I get mad because I dropped the phone call and I'm thinking, wait a minute, I'm talking in my car to somebody who's 3,000 miles away without any landlines, right?
Exactly. Yeah, right. This is also why I get upset when I see technology being cheapened. Other words, to me, a cell phone, I know people don't want to hear this, but in all fairness, if everybody from the beginning to the end got paid properly, from the guy who mines the rare minerals for $5 a day, a cell phone should be $1,500 to start, maybe $2,000.
If all the workers were going to get paid with a
I don't
fair
want to be a part of that. I don't buy one.
I understand what you're saying. That's an interesting point of view.
All
too.
these people who claim to be green buy these things, and then they claim to be green people, but yet they pay into this. So your son-in-law has a true respect for the technology, and he's put it to work.
Right.
To me, that's wonderful. That's exactly what that tool in your hand should be. It should not be. Let's play Facebook or whatever. That's that's too much technology for you to play with as a toy.
All right. Well, I've got another call, but I want to thank you for calling in.
And I think you should nurture your son-in-law. He needs to nurture those things.
I will.
We need more tech schools.
Thank you very much for your call. I really appreciate it. You too. Bye-bye. Oh, okay. I lost the phone call. If you want to call back in, I'm sorry. I just didn't get to you in time. I'm on my own here at the radio show. So let me give you the number again to call. 203-336-9756. So I know somebody was calling in a moment ago. I didn't quite catch you. So I'll give you another moment to call in. Again, 203-336-9756. We're talking about what does it take to be a good worker. This idea that there are things that people can do that make them feel valuable to people who are the people that are in charge of keeping you paid. And, our last caller just had some really interesting thoughts about, showing interest in what's going on. Try to figure out how to fix things. If it's something mechanical, demonstrate that you have an aptitude for getting involved and being creative in how you approach, how you deal with things. That's really helpful to think about, too. So I want to thank the two callers we had, and I'll wait for you to call in. Again, the number is 203-336-9756. And we're talking about what does it take for people to show up in the workplace and be welcomed and be highly thought of. Because sometimes that leads to high compensation too. I mean, the one person that we just heard about that was doing the things that were valued, he went on and got a much better job with more money. And I think that happens to people who really embrace work and don't. Again, I know sometimes that you land up just moving into something because you can't really figure out what it is you want to do. I get that. And then you end up there and you're sort of bored or you're not really happy and yet you're kind of waiting for the world to kind of create something, some new wonderful event for you that's going to be the message that you're waiting for to tell you what to do next that's going to be more exciting. Well, I think you got to be proactive about that. I think you've got to show some interest in your own life, in your own career, and what you want to do. So wherever you are, whatever job you might have today, can you take more interest in it somehow? Can you display some initiative where you try to push past what somebody's asked you to do, and you look and you think, what else needs to be done here? If I got a few minutes that I'm not doing something, can I start thinking about what else needs to be done here and try and see if I can figure out how to get that done? That's really helpful to folks who are in charge, believe me. So when you think about what makes for a good worker, here's one. How about showing up on time? How about finishing things on time? And what about if you can't finish on time, letting somebody know early that you're going to be late, so they're not assuming, since they haven't heard from you, that what your part or whatever it is they're trying to get done isn't going to be done on time, because that impacts lots of other things sometimes. So be on time. Be on time with what you're going to deliver. be on time when you need to show up at a workplace. I remember one of the books I read some years ago, Ferdinand Ferney, I think his name was, about being a great coach. And he said, sometimes you have to say to a salaried worker that you might like what they do when they're there, but if they're not there on time, and your phone's customer service center, for instance, opens up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and you need 30 people at the phones at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they're not there on time, well, you don't want to be mean. They may have some difficulties in their home, and there might be some reasons for that. But at the same time, you need 30 people being on the phone at 8 o'clock in the morning, and you only got 29. And so as a result, the queue starts to build up, and people are waiting a long time to the point that maybe they don't want to do business with you because it's longer than they're willing to wait. And so he had this line. I love this line. He said, you know what? We need somebody to be here in that chair at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I hope that's you. And I hope that's you. Doesn't have to be, obviously, is the point. I'd like it to be you. I'm not mad at you, but I need somebody to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning. If it can't be you, then I got to find somebody else. What does it take to be a good worker, folks? So again, I know there was somebody calling in. I hope you're in a place where you can call back. Sometimes people pull over to the side of the road and then get back on the road when they can't reach me. Anyway, the number is 203-336-9756. Again, one of the other thoughts I had as well was, can you talk a little bit about how do you raise your children so they have a good work ethic? What is it that you can do when you're raising kids to make sure that when they show up in the workplace, they feel as though they know what is expected and they're ready to go? One of our daughters who's being very successful at work, thank goodness. All our daughters are. We have 3 daughters. They're all doing great at work. But one of them said to us just the other night, I'm so thankful that you raised us with the importance of work and what we needed to do when we showed up in the workplace so that we were valued and made a difference. And I thought about it. It wasn't really conscious so much. I think it's just that my wife and I both have a really good work ethic ourselves. We've always worked really hard at whatever it was we were doing. Always tried to be the best we could be. Even in the face of adversity, we both had challenging bosses at times. But even when you had a challenging boss, we still try to find a way to make it work. Because inside, our internal motivation overcame how we might be feeling about the person we work for. Not everybody brings that to the table. So one of the things that I think is really important in terms of showing up, how you want to feel when you walk in the door, is that you want to feel, no matter what, I'm going to make something happen today. I'm going to do something meaningful today. I'm going to try and work hard to support my manager today, my teammates today. The project goals or the regular goals and objectives I have daily, I'm going to work as best as I can today to make sure that at the end of the day, I get done what I said I was going to do. And if for some reason something can't get done, and I know it's important to someone else, I want to let them know as soon as possible so they can make whatever contingency plans they need to make. Those are some of the things I think are important about work. What do you think is important about raising children to be good workers? And what do you just think in general about trying to find good workers? What is a good worker to you? What does it mean to be a good worker? All right, I'm going to wait a minute now and give you a chance to call. I've got about 10 minutes left, and I'd like at least another call or two. So the number is 203-336-9756. We had 2 great calls. I'd like you to be the next one. 203-336-9756. Well, you're forcing me to talk about the New England Patriots now. As some of you may know, if you've listened to the show before, or if you haven't guessed already, I'm originally from Massachusetts, where it's real clear who you vote for when it comes to sports teams. I find Connecticut has no real loyalty to any major sports teams. There's lots of interest in major sports, but I had friends that were Celtics fans and New York Giants fans. Made no sense to me. Or Red Sox fans and New York Jets fans. Connecticut has always been confusing to me around those kind of issues. But it's real clear. For where I'm from, you grow up, you're a Red Sox fan, you're a Celtics fan, you're a Bruins fan, and you're a Patriots fan. And if you haven't seen the Patriots and you don't know much about them, let me just say that they have what many people consider to be the greatest of all time. They call him GOAT for some reason. It's always curious to me, GOAT, because as many of you know, scapegoat is not a very good thing for somebody to be. But anyway, this term got created called GOAT, and it's an acronym for greatest of all time. Oh, we got a caller. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Who am I talking to, please?
Hi, my name is Bill.
Hi, Bill.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
I work in a restaurant, bartender, and I find that these iPhones are such a huge distraction. I go in the kitchen and all the waitresses, if they have a spare minute, they're all on their iPhones, not even talking to one another, and they could be doing other things. And I mentioned to my boss, who's in his 50s, about saying, let's just not allow, the wait staff to have them when they're clocked in. And then I find that he's using his a lot. So I just find it, I'm old school, and I find it really distracting and upsetting that goes on. And I think it's a detriment to people concentrating on their jobs.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Billy. There's they purposely, a lot of these, particularly the tech companies, have found ways to make these phones more and more addictive, right?
Yes.
And it's kind of almost like the cigarette companies years and years ago, where cigarettes were much more harmful in one way, but this is harmful too. Because people don't, sometimes we'll be at dinner and we'll be with family members, and some of the family is on their phone, looking at their phones like, aren't you just enjoying being with the family, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it, yeah.
Like I said, I walked into the kitchen, there were 5 waitresses, none of them communicating, all of them just looking at their phones and whatever they're doing with them, and I just found that insane.
Yeah, when you have a boss that's doing the same thing, what was his take on it? What did he say to you? Did he say anything?
I don't know. He just kind of shrugged his shoulders and that's the way it is now,
Yeah.
Which was more frustrating, but...
Yeah, you'd have to have somebody who is willing to have a social experiment and just, I think if you took them away... I do know that there are meetings. Sometimes people have meetings, and I've seen this in the workplace where they say, look, when you come into the meeting, it's kind of like in the Old West when they used to put their, everybody had to hang their guns up before they sat down at the bar, right? And now when you come into a meeting, everybody puts their iPhones in a basket, and we put them in another room, and whatever text or whatever crazy important thing that's happening on Facebook or Instagram or wherever it might be, or Snapchat, wherever that is, somehow I think it will wait until we're done with our meeting.
Exactly.
Right. And so, but I think if you were willing to just say to people, you know what, I'd like to experiment with the idea that I know it's really important to everybody, but I do think we'd be more effective, and we might even find ourselves enjoying each other. Maybe not to the same degree we do when we're working with our phones. But what would you think to just try coming in for a night and just seeing what it's like to put up all the phones in this one little place, and at the end of the night, just saying, did you miss them that much? And can we try it again another night? I mean, you might be able to get away with that, but it has to be on a voluntary basis. And probably most people won't go for it, but they might.
That's an excellent idea. I like that.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things. Because how do you want people to feel? You don't want them to feel bullied. And if you tell somebody they can't use their phone, and they got someplace else they can go where they can use their phone, then maybe you might lose somebody. You don't want to do that. But if you kind of open it up as kind of a fun thing to just experiment with, and are you willing to try? Can we try this for one night just to see what it's like, and then talk a little bit about it?
Yeah. I like it.
All right.
I like it. That is a great suggestion, and I'm going to relay that to my boss.
Well, if it works out, let me know. Might be other people will try. All right. Thanks for the phone call.
Talking to you.
You too.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Okay, folks, I got about 5 minutes left. So if you've got something else that you want to call and talk to me about, this is your chance. I won't be back for a few weeks. I'm here for the first and the second Wednesdays of the month from 12 to 1 p.m. You listen to WPKN, by the way, 89.5 FM in Bridgeport, serving Fairfield, New Haven, and Litchfield counties in Connecticut, Suffolk County in New York, as well as communities around the world via podcast and streaming at WPKN.org. Now, you can also listen on the podcast on SoundCloud, but I also have a bunch of shows on Public Radio Exchange, prx.org. Again, you go to these places and you type in Emotion Roadmap, and you'll see a bunch of shows come up. And you also, again, if you just want to watch it on YouTube, if you think that'd be fun, you can go to YouTube and type in Emotion Roadmap, might come up. Or go to Simsbury Community TV on YouTube, and then type in Emotion Roadmap, and it will definitely come up. Or you can find all these things on my homepage too, which is the Emotion Roadmap, all one word, emotion, not emotional, by the way. Some people think this is the Emotional Roadmap show. Well, roadmaps aren't emotional, people are, and it's the Emotion Roadmap. How do you get from one emotion to another? If you're feeling anxious and you want to feel confident, how do you do that? If somebody is feeling distrusting and you want them to feel trusting about what you want to do with them, how do you create that trust? That's what the show is about. It's an Emotion Roadmap. So anyway, if you want to go to the homepage, it's emotionroadmap.com. And you can find ways to listen or watch the show on YouTube from that page. So that's pretty much what the show's been about, folks. I want to thank people for calling in. Again, I got a couple minutes. If you got something quick you want to tell me about the workplace or in raising kids. One of the things we think is important in terms of raising kids, by the way, is have people have responsibilities. I think one of the things that my wife does with my grandson that he adores is he loves to make French toast. When he comes in and stays over the house, we have a French toast that we have as part of our ceremony in our house. We have a challah bread, and then we have on the weekend morning when he's with us, he will help my wife make the French toast, and he adores doing that. But I think it's got to get people involved in having fun and being part of helping in the household, and that's one of the ways that you build this interest in being in helping to take care of things and clean up. I also think it's really important that people feel like they're that they can't just interact in a way in the workplace. In the household, where people are just waiting hand and foot on them, and they're not expected to do anything to help support the household. It's never should be seen as a punishment. It just should be seen as a way that families get together and support one another. So I think one of the things that we can do to create this kind of positive work ethic is to simply make sure that people feel like work is part of being a family member that's being helpful and supportive of one another. And no one person is in charge of taking care of all the rest of us. We all are responsible for supporting each other. And I think that's part of the messages, I think, that helps to create a worker who comes onto a team and feels as though it isn't just what's in front of me that's important. I want to make sure I take care of what's in front of me. That's most important because that's why they pick me. But if I got any room at all, I want to see as though the person on either side of me or across the hall from me, do they need some help? And does my skill set allow me to possibly be helpful to them in a way that might be meaningful and constructive? Is there something that my manager, my leader, could use a hand with that he hasn't thought to ask me, but I might have that skill set and I might be able to help out? You want to be the kind of worker people care about, value, and really appreciate. You start doing some of the things we talked about. Well, thank you very much for listening, everybody. You've been listening to, I'm Chuck Wolf, and this show is called The Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. And I want to thank the people that called in. I want to thank those of you who have been listening. And I want you to all to enjoy the rest of your day. And I'll be back with you the first Wednesday in the month of October. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.